Go live. Go live.
All right. Good day, fellow geeks. Today we're going to talk about Ashran PvP and the mystical things we don't know about it yet. Unified auction houses and no more level 25 guilds? What does this mean? Stay tuned for this episode of Geeks of Azeroth. Hello everybody and welcome. My name is Tarly and I'm here with my fellow geek Tom, aka I always forget your alias name.
It's Britza. I don't even remember it.
Britza, and we don't use that because a girl in Montana has stolen it from you. Hannah Montana has stolen his name. Evil girl. So, why don't we kick things off and talk about Ashran? There's a lot we don't know about Ashran, but there's a lot we do know about it, like the fact that, like we mentioned last week, our faction capitals are going to be there.
Unfortunately, unfortunately, or no one, you don't care. That's the view most people are taking.
Yeah, and as you can see right here, I've got a little map pulled up. You can see now clearly where our faction capitals are going to be, and they are quite smaller than a big city that everyone was hoping for.
They're tiny.
With that.
They are really small. We were talking about this a second ago. That's the almost. Forgive me if I'm wrong. This is what everyone feared they would do, which was just the sort of generic building.
Especially if you're a horde. I mean, we just get these little mud huts with spikes coming out of them. I mean, Alliance is usually a little bit more organized, but still.
Well,
it's going to be more like a small encampment rather than being a full blown city. But as I was talking with you before the show, one thing I was wondering is this going to be it that we see for PvP in 6.0? We've heard nothing so far about a battleground, and we're a couple weeks into the beta now.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I imagine we'd probably hear by the end of the month. We're in July now, aren't we? So I'd hope to see it by the end of the month. I imagine there must be some level of battlegrounds, or there will be battlegrounds in there to say. But I hope, as we were saying, I hope this isn't a platform for open world, sort of a more open world PvP, because that ties into so many things that people don't want to happen. We don't want another PvP segment to the legendary sort of quests and things like that.
Yeah, if they add to the legendary, you have to go and kill 10 other faction players on Ashran to continue.
Or raid the other city or something.
Yeah, that would create quite a problem. They got to keep PvP and PvE separate a little bit. But
some, hopefully.
Yeah, my concern is, I mean, I hope we get to see a new battleground at some point in the expansion, but I wouldn't be surprised if they don't do one at all and just, say, here we go, explore Ashran for the first patch of Warlords, and you'll have a new battleground later on.
Well, one thing, I was watching Noble's guide on YouTube. He was talking more about the faction switch and the fallout from that, but what do you think in terms of storyline is going to be the basis for PvP kicking off, do you think? Because obviously there's a unified front going into Warlords, but something's going to have to tip to start us attacking each other.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know, because we're banded together at this point to fight off the Iron Horde. So what's so important about this little piece of land? Because we're fighting over it. That's what we've heard. We're fighting over this island. We've got our two bases on the side, but the island we're trying to gain control of. So there's going to be some lore aspect to it, I'm sure, just because they're trying to incorporate it with the world. So there's going to be lore around the island somewhat about why we want it. Maybe there's a buried titan there or something. I don't know. Anyway, the titans weren't on Draenor, were they? Oh, I gotta catch up with
so much lore. That's a trunk of worms. That is.
Yeah.
Alternate realities. Anything's possible, really, isn't it?
There's still a lot to be unveiled about Ashran too, but from what I can tell, it just seems like it's going to be a massive battleground anyway. I mean, there's going to be flag objectives, there's towers to capture, different points of land to hold, and there's also going to be PvE bosses, world bosses on the island to kill as well, and fight the other faction for the kills. So
Almost like a bit of a League of Legends kind of structure to it.
maybe.
You could call it lanes. In a way, you could see it as lanes if you look at the map. But
Yeah, and we'll go. I'll pull up that map here again. And it's been said that there's going to be NPCs going from each base towards the center of the island. So that itself could be MOBA-like, that there's NPCs killing each other, and that you can kill them for small, like, points of honor or something like that. So even that's MOBA-like in a sense.
though, to sort of compare it to what we have already, we have what's it the what are the what's the one in Wintergrass in Northrend?
Wintergrass.
Oh, is it Wintergrass?
Yeah.
Sorry, that's it. That's what I think of it. It's you've got that, and then the one they brought for Kata was
Tolbarad.
Oh, Tolbarad. Sorry.
Yeah.
So, do you think it could shift towards a sort of, whoever has control of the island, or 2 out of 3 bases? They brought that in Hellfire Peninsula.
I think
they have 3 areas you could capture, and they gave you all of them gave you a buff if you controlled them.
I think we're gonna see something along the lines of, like, not Tolbarad and Wintergrass, because that was like kind of an every hour. All right, now the battleground started. You can't enter, and then it would end, and then whoever had control could do the world boss. I don't think we'll see that again. I think we will see kind of an incorporation between the Timeless Isle and like what we had back in like Hellfire Peninsula with the bases. So there's going to be all of these objectives for you to continuously capture, while there will be treasure chests and rare mobs and stuff like that to kill as well. So that's what I'm kind of seeing from what I've heard. But so far in the alpha and then now into the beta, they haven't unlocked it yet. So there's a lot we don't know.
That is true. That is true. But what's these sort of possible battlegrounds that we could have? What would you like to see?
I still want to see Defender of the Ale House. And if you remember that abbreviation, it's Dota. It was a 3-laned battleground that had NPCs going on both sides, and towers and everything. It was going to be a full-blown MOBA style battleground, and I would love to see that come to fruition at some point.
They might as well do it. I mean, if they've got it for going for Heroes of the Storm, why not just integrate it a little bit the other way as well?
Yeah, I would love to see integration with Heroes and Hearthstone into WoW. Like, you can go up to a table in WoW and open up Hearthstone, and there you're playing Hearthstone in WoW.
That would be like a Red Dead Redemption mini game, as it were, something like that.
Yeah, challenge your friends while you're sitting in a raid waiting to pick up one other person or something like that. Just like you can battle pet, people in your raid.
That would be really cool, actually. I would like that. That would be cool. Instead of like the dual button, you have challenge the Hearthstone or something.
I think Heroes would be a little bit more too much, because those games can be like half an hour long, so probably wouldn't do that.
That's true. What about the number of players for Battlegrounds? Obviously, we've seen how I'm trying to think of a word. You know how they've made it a central 20 for Mythic raiding, so they can plan the mechanics around that. I can't think of the word I was going to use, but do you think Battlegrounds will be dealt with in a similar way? Do you think we should have Battlegrounds which are just set to every single one, not like you have a map that's 10, a map that's 15, a map that's 40. Just have every map as a set 25, say, and then build mechanics that make that 25 player base interesting to sort of work with.
Well, I hadn't really thought about that, like mechanic based. That would be interesting. Well, if you do rated battlegrounds, rateds are set numbers per battleground, but that doesn't really change the mechanics. That just makes it so it's kind of fair. More evened out, more balanced. But yeah, that's definitely a interesting idea. If they had like set 25-man battleground stuff like that, they could incorporate different mechanics, kind of like what is that battleground, the one that the Alliance always wins?
Arathi, no, not Arathi Basin, Ultrek Valley.
Ultrek Valley, yeah. Like old school Ultrek Valley, where you had summon the Frost Lord and stuff like that,
That's
I,
it.
but I remember back like midway through this current expansion, they were talking about setting separate queues for the longer or the bigger and longer lasting battlegrounds with the smaller ones, and that never came. And I'm wondering if they're going to do that with Warlords, set them separately, and then they were going to bring back some of the mechanics of Alterac Valley too, if they were going to do that.
That would be amazing. I would love to. I mean, it's hard in a way because the way I always thought of as a really cool mechanic, I should say, actually, that I thought would work really well, particularly on Ashram, would be, say you were having two-player bases struggling, I'm imagining it in the concept of like a Wintergrass match, so it's not really right now, but imagine playing a battleground and you have all these different sort of points where you're capturing or something like that, and say the player that is losing grounds or isn't capturing as many bases, suddenly a small set of the Iron Horde turn up, and then the losing team has to play around with that and then try and get the advantage. And I just think ways to make it a little bit better than, oh, there's here comes another Horde player or an Alliance player, something that shapes it up a little bit. And
I think that's all stuff we're going to see in Ashran. Definitely think we're going to see PvE mechanics like that. But I agree. I'd like to see that kind of stuff in other battlegrounds, new battlegrounds to come. That would be definitely interesting if they could incorporate that. And I think a good one to start that off with would be Defender of the Alehouse, that they've kind of stored away. As you can tell, I really want to play that one. It just seems really interesting. I mean, even if they did it like 5v5, like League of Legends style, it'd be pretty interesting.
Get it on a White House petition.
Yes. Blizzard!
Get Obama on it.
Writing it right now.
Though there's I'm noticing on the map, again, there's it's hard to explain, but in old school vanilla Mount Hyjal, there was, is it Archimonde's corpse was under the tree?
Oh yeah.
And it looks like there's something similar in that sort of scale there again. It looks
you can see like this giant skeleton thing here on the map. I'm not quite sure what that is.
It's too large to be what, I can't remember the boss from old Burning Crusade. One of the I can't even. There's too many species to it. Like, who's that?
Gruul.
Gruul. That's it. Yeah. I'm thinking Grond, but Grond's the battering ram from Lord of the Rings. Yeah, he's a bit larger than that. So I'm sitting there thinking, what else could be larger? And then maybe it's
you see
the Burning Legion.
You see that like the original preview that came out for Warlords at BlizzCon. There's that big kind of troll, not troll.
Mm-hmm.
What are the?
Yeah, this is it. I can't remember.
I'm forgetting everything. Whatever Gruul is, it's like a bigger one of those with the one eyes and things. That's what I think it's going to be. I think it's a skeleton of that thing. But
we're not having a lore day.
But when you look, it's also interesting because when you look at the map just north of that, you can see like this kind of tiered looking base, and I'm going to assume there's a big boss up in there.
But then that ties in perfectly, because you could have it on the map so whoever, a bit like League of Legends, whoever attacks and kills that boss, say the Alliance team manage it while the Horde are sleeping, suddenly they get a massive buff for an hour, 2 hours, a day maybe. That means they can just punish, and then maybe that's the sort of thing they need to, really take the bases, because it really doesn't look like these bases are as difficult to take as what they've been professing at Blizzard, because they've been saying, it'll be really, really hard, so that you won't just spawn in and suddenly there's, there wouldn't be 40 players necessarily in your base because the bases themselves aren't shared, but you know what I mean, you won't just turn on and then suddenly realise that you're getting absolutely ganked by the enemy. But that's just a barricade. That's all I can see. There's a barricade and a bridge, and that's hasn't stopped us at Alterac Valley. Right. As you well know.
Well, as they've mentioned about Ashran too, is you're going to be spending a lot of time building your own siege weapons, like catapults and stuff like that, your own personal things that you can use to take down bases. And that's something I thought was interesting, like killing NPCs and stuff, and you're getting materials and stuff. And then if another player kills you, they can loot those materials off you and then build them for themselves. That's one interesting mechanic there,
That is
which would be
interesting.
rather frustrating if you're getting repeatedly ganked. But since the entire realm, island of Ashran is like cross realm, trying to make it pretty even between Horde and Alliance, ganking probably won't be too much of a problem. It'll just be constant fighting.
Though, bear in mind those resources, what's the outcome for other players? Because naturally, when anything in WoW, you have to ask, well, what's in it for the
Yeah,
player?
like why are we doing this?
Why are you going to do
I'm
it?
gonna assume you get stuff for your garrison. They've pretty much put that everywhere. Is you do something, you're gonna get a follower or something for your garrison. But I think you're also chances for PvP gear as well. In doing
Mm.
that, I'd have to assume so. If there's no chance of getting PvP gear out of doing Ashran, then why do Ashran? I don't know.
PvP gear, which would revert to PvE gear when you go out of Ashran. Is that how it's working that way as well?
The PvP gear transitions when you're not in PvP combat.
Right. That's
So as
that's
soon as you're in combat with another player, boom, those stats come up. So
okay. That makes it worth it because it's just another loot grinding spot, which
yeah, I think,
pretty cool.
and it would make sense too if there is no battleground, then that's just going to be the place where you get your honor gear, and then typical rated battlegrounds and arenas still for conquest. Um,
Mm.
but that would make sense to me if that's where you farm your honor out, though, as well as doing skirmishes, which I don't know if anyone else is happy about them, but I am so excited about skirmishes coming back.
Well, why are you excited about
Because,
that?
me personally, I prefer arenas over battlegrounds. I think they're much more personal, and it's more of a
Hmm.
test of skill than when you have a battleground, you could have half the team just not caring, not whatever. So
Hmm.
skirmishes are a nice way you can solo queue into them, and hopefully you don't get a teammate that's not playing. But even if you do, it's really going to be a test of your own skill against another player, and it'll be for honor, so it's a bit more relaxed than the conquest arena system.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I know I've certainly been in that. When the old Aldrich Valley startup where it was what, a 2 minute wait or a
Yeah,
minute wait,
yeah,
and you go, oh, I'll just get myself a drink, and then you come back and everyone's already run off. You're
yeah,
like, oh, fair enough. I'll go to the base. I know what you mean. That's
yeah.
certainly a good idea. If it's going to be PvP, you want active PvP, and I guess personal PvP
Mhm.
really does sort of emphasize things.
Yeah, and it's a great way too. I mean, people get nervous about jumping right into rated arenas. So if you have this opportunity now again to practice, only for honor, there's no rating involved, so you're not going to keep losing rating when you're losing. So it's a great way for new people who haven't really experienced much in arenas too to just kind of hop in there and see what it's like. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
What about the specific items? There's also specific sort of tomes that we can get onto in a second, but there's quite a lot of just some of the sort of items you can grab on Ashran. There's things like the Tauren Hoof and Forsaken Brains and Worgen Snout, sort of, which
Mhm.
I imagine tie in the same way that sort of insignias worked in a way. Um, yeah, there's basically one for every single race: Goblin Nose, Dwarf Spine. I don't know why the Alliance seems to be getting really mutilated. The Horde just lose a foot or an arm, whereas you need Dwarf Spines for some reason. But saying that, there's also some epic items that I've just come across which teach you specific spells.
Yeah.
So you've got Ascension for the priest. You've got
It,
Jailer's Judgment.
I don't understand how that works really. So you get items that upgrade your current spells, or are they new spells that you're getting from items? That,
Well,
or is it more like a glyph type
I
system?
Well, that's it. I think it's more of a glyph type system. Again, this is the problem. Our information is so incomplete.
Hmm.
Um, it's I'm looking at the priest one, the Codex of Ascension, which is the epic item which teaches you the spell Ascension.
Hmm.
Um, originally, it was originally it was supposed to be a priest staff, equipable staff, which you can only use in Ashran, and it would allow
Oh, right,
you
right,
to
yeah.
fly into the zone. And
Yeah.
and
So you can
now
be a
they
priest raining down fire above everyone else.
that's
I remember these items now. Um,
so that's they've changed them into sort of generic codexes now, where you learn something and that's how you use it.
right, and
But
but they're only available on Ashran.
that's it.
Right, you can't just take this priest item, for example, and go fly around all of Draenor just Ha
No,
ha! Just weaving magic. And I would assume it can only last this, like, kind of like a 20-minute buff or a 10-minute buff kind of a thing, too. I mean, if you're just constantly flying over everyone, that's kind of at a disadvantage to everyone else.
no, definitely, definitely.
Or
But
have some kind of cooldown on it or something.
well,
But it is
that
intriguing.
no, it's definitely true. And there's two reasons for that. One is that it gives you if Ashran, and then effectively it gives you two reasons why Ashran becomes a bit more interesting, even despite all the sort of negativity that's surrounding them. One, it's opening up a new style of play,
Hmm.
which because it's giving you unique abilities. If you get unique abilities for every single class, then naturally people are going to want those abilities just to try them out or have fun with them. I mean, if you've got a pally spell, which in this case sends you to jail, you're basically
Yep.
playing WoW Monopoly.
Yep.
Uh, I think I'm the very last person to make that
You
joke.
have
So I
been
won't go into
judged.
that. You have been judged. Do not get 200 gold. But
Don't
not
pass
only are
go.
you opening up. Sorry.
I said don't pass go.
Don't pass go. Exactly. That would be cool if they could tie that in. A little Monopoly guy sitting in the background. Goblin one. That'd be cool. But if you're opening up new styles of play, you're interested in that because if you want to play a warrior or death knight in a particular way, and these spells are sort of, I'm expecting there to hopefully be more than one, not just a little spell you're tapping once every now and again. But if you're getting sort of, as I would say, a PvP rotation,
Yeah.
that opens up
Yeah.
a new style of play that will make it interesting. The other side is they've already opened up the concept that you could fly in Ashran. And that suggests two things. Either Ashran will be the only flyable zone in the new expansion, which people are naturally going to be drawn to, because we want to use our flying mount somewhere. And that might be explained the capital city movement. But the other side of it, it might also be a hint towards when flying will become available in Warlords if they do release it across all of Draenor.
I I think flying in Ashran is a very bad idea. But aside from like the priest thing, because you've never been able to fly in a battleground before, because that creates a huge disadvantage. Like, let's say there is a capture the flag type scenario. Well, I'm just going to grab the flag, and I can't mount up because I have the flag, but I can sure hop on my buddy with a two-seater mount, and here we go. So
Yeah.
um,
Or get that new mount, which means that anyone can go up to the post and
yeah.
that new steeds. Just
pay,
everyone just takes off.
you know, the mount that you paid half the price of Warlords for, you know.
Let's not start on that.
Yeah, so I've heard the rumor as well that they'll allow flying there, but it just doesn't make sense to me if they do.
We were was it in Qatar or even as early as Lich King that we were promised flying PvP combat? One of them had it on the box.
Oh
I
yeah,
can't remember which one.
maybe
I think
maybe if they had it like where it was kind of like a predetermined flight plan, like a taxi. You hop on it and you can like use a certain weapon. Like maybe you're hopping on a gnome-made ship and it has a turret that you can fire down. Like that would be interesting. But I think if you can just hop on your mount and then fly from place to place, that kind of creates a disadvantage.
I think, yeah, and obviously the bases aren't very defendable if you can just drop
Yeah.
in from the sky,
Yep.
slow fall everyone from your mage.
Mhm.
But I think maybe a way it could be applied, this sort of area to the right of that map,
Hmm.
where that sort of dead thing is, we'll remember it in a second.
Yeah.
Maybe if that's an area where you have to access, say, an island boss to get
Yeah.
that buff, maybe you all have to fly over there, and then it's sort of a race to whoever can get the boss, and then the Horde or the Alliance sharp, you know, oh god, we've got to take these guys on as well. And you get the buff, and then that allows you to take the base. That would be cool if it was sort of like a partition of the island that it applied to,
Yeah.
and then the rest of the island you just got automatically shot out the sky by something.
Right. I mean, I guess even if they had flying on the island and it just shot you out of the sky when you entered the bases, that would probably be okay. It just still seems like, since it's going to be so objective based, I mean, like, you can't fly on the Timeless Isle, for example, just because you could fly right up to Ordos's island and, you know, no problem. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it pans out. But like you said, that would be interesting if you had to fly up to the certain spot to kill a boss, for instance.
It would be interesting, certainly. If it's basically just making a PvP. Well, no, it's Timeless Isle, isn't it? I think you've nailed it on the head. They're just trying to recreate that Timeless Isle feeling.
Yeah, just with, you know, world PvP. But did we talk about flying at all in our last episode? I don't remember. I don't think we did.
No, I don't think we did. We just talked about the capital cities.
Capital
What
cities
do
all
you
the time.
make of flying? We actually might as well start off.
I really think
How does
Blizzard's
it
going to introduce that in 6.1. Because I mean, I think no flying is a good idea, but I think a lot of people don't. So, I think enough people will speak up about it through the first patch, and it'll be introduced in 6.1. And Blizzard had already mentioned something previously about there's going to be more like a quest line, kind of like a mini legendary quest line that you have to do to acquire the ability to fly. Not sure how that'll work per se. Like,
You have to do stuff for me and I give you flight pass.
yeah.
I wouldn't even know how badly I would suffer under that. I'm struggling through the legendary quest as it is. If someone told me I couldn't fly as well because of my lack of, my lack of ability to front these challenges, it'd become an unbearable game. I think that's the wrong way. I wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I like the whole idea of not being able to fly. I mean, yeah, there are mounts that people have paid for that don't look good when they're walking on the ground. They're specifically flying mounts, but you can still fly in Azeroth, I think Warlords, or no, the place is Warlords. I think Draenor is a savage land, and they really want you to see everything that they've made. So, at least through the first patch, I think it's a good thing that we're going to have to walk around everywhere again.
Well, that's it. I think when people say, I want to be able to fly, let's look at how flying really works now at the end of MoP. It's the only time people are really on their flying mounts is in Stormwind or in the Vale.
Yep.
You are not. No one is, and anyone who ever is flying over Pandaria at the moment is either using established flight paths, or is going straight to the Timeless Isle.
Yep. Because either the flight paths are going to be faster than what you have, or you have 310 flying and you can fly straight there. So
exactly, they're more like vanity items now. It's just people hover above Stormwind, literally a foot off the ground in some circumstances, on
just
all their
to show
collectible.
off.
Exactly, it's a show off point. It's a vanity item,
So-
and
we should have flying only in the capital island. There, that should be the only place you can fly.
honestly, I think if you did that, people wouldn't even notice. People wouldn't even notice because whenever
or
can
in
you
your
think of a time-
garrison, you can fly around in your garrison.
in your garrison, there you go. But can you honestly think of a time recently where you've been playing the game and for whatever reason you've needed to head to somewhere and you've gone, right, thank God I have my flying mount because I couldn't do this.
I mean, the only dailies I do nowadays are like I'll take another tune that I'm grinding PvP gear on and go to the Timeless Isle and do the Isle of Thunder and do those PvP dailies. In which case you can't fly there anyway, so I'll fly directly there. But either way, I'm on my ground anyway. So yeah, the only time I'm using my flying mount really is to directly get to the Timeless Isle, or to just hover in the Vale.
Exactly. I think portals. It's people don't want faster travel. I think Blizzard is just cutting out. There's people who like to be stationary, people who sit around in capital cities and just jump into LFR and Flex and all that, and they literally do not move at all because there's no reason to move. And there's people who want to just go to those different places and explore the content.
And people can still do that. They can go hang out in the Stormwind or the Vale or
exactly,
Orgrimmar
but
and fly around.
They can do it through portals.
Yeah.
Why have this sort of middle transition which causes so many problems, i.e. the fast travelling mounts, when everything is solved? If you have portals, if you want to move, be there instantly, and you're still exploring the content the way Blizzard want to, and that's what they're doing. They're putting portals everywhere.
Yep, it makes sense, and it really makes it easier, or it makes it too easy when you're doing daily quests and stuff too. If I can, here's my quest objective over here. Gonna fly. All right, now I'm gonna fly over here, kill this guy. Oh, fly over here, kill this guy. That just made it too easy. It has to be. It has to be somewhat difficult. It has to be savage. And if you ever played classic WoW, I mean, you couldn't fly then.
No, it was a myth.
Days. Yeah,
I remember the press conference when they announced flying for Burning Crusade, and it seemed like the most mind blowing thing ever, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, this is gonna be amazing!" But you have to remember, it was end tier, as it always has been,
level 70, and you could only do it in Outland.
Exactly. exactly. And no one sat there and gone, "Oh my God, why can't you let it?" Some people might have said that. Why couldn't you let it happen in Azeroth and Kalimdor? But
The
it's not.
Yeah, the only time flying mounts have really made sense to me was in Cataclysm, just because of how spread out everything was. That okay, it makes sense to have to fly here, especially Mount Hyjal, since it's so up there, But you still had portals everywhere even then, so.
As a sort of like a rounding off point, obviously the digital deluxe version pre-order came with a flying mount.
Yeah. I don't know.
Now, what obviously on one level that's so people can obviously enjoy it. Again, vanity items. It's about showing off you've bought the digital deluxe, but
that mount looks good on the ground though. It's pretty much
does.
Anzu from the Raven Lord. Pretty much it's that mount. But
do you think it says something about how? What I think, I think the fact they released that as a digital deluxe item shows that flying will be there eventually.
Yeah.
Because if you're going, why would you? Why? Because some people, if I'm wrong, am I wrong in saying digital deluxe versions are still available after release?
I think you can upgrade to it.
Exactly.
At least for a certain point. I don't think you can actually get the digital, like Pandaria. I don't think you can get that now. You can maybe shop on eBay and get the actual hard copy of the deluxe edition with the signed books and stuff like that. That includes the mount and pet in there. But I don't think you can just go online and buy the digital deluxe of Pandaria. I may be wrong, but
well, in either way, you wouldn't want your sort of flashy show-off products attached to your digital deluxe to be an item which no one could use.
Exactly. So
in the product.
I do think it's coming. So definitely.
Ooh.
we kind of went on a rant there for.
Yeah, we did, but that's good. It's good because at the end of the day, everyone's talked about the capital cities to death this week.
Yeah.
And I think people are forgetting that there's so much more to WoW in a sense. I know this is like a very cliche thing to say, but you know what I mean. It's just there's a lot more to talk about, and there's a lot more to sort of revisit. News is coming up so thick and fast about this expansion that it's worth remembering that the stuff that was talked about a month ago is being readdressed as well. So
it's not, that's the thing. It is everything right now is subject to change. Everything. Anything could be flipped off in a second. If enough people complain, everybody complain for me about the capital cities. They may just decide, and hey, all right, we're gonna go with what we promised you originally. Let's make a petition about that.
It's going to be called, but on release day, it'll be called The Dark Below. And that will be it. It's actually about the Naga. This is just a big troll session. It's not actually set in Draenor at all.
At BlizzCon, they'll announce, it'll probably come out before BlizzCon. BlizzCon comes and they'll say, all right, there's no additional patches coming to Warlords. This is it. And the new expansion's coming out here tomorrow.
That's it. Or this whole setup is actually that that hour-long intro quest. You do the intro quest, you actually defeat all the warlords, and then the actual expansion you should go back, and then you realise the Nagar have taken over everything.
No, Rathion leading the charge of the
and only people with legendary clothes can join.
Yes. All right.
God, that was a slap in the face.
Let's move on from that. Announced this week, unified auction houses in 6.0. Not cross-server, but cross-faction on server. What do you think about that? That's pretty interesting.
So, I'm surprised. In a way, I'm surprised this hasn't happened sooner, because the way I'll just say my bit very quickly. The way that I think people play the game, I think faction loyalty is something that perhaps Blizzard would like to sort of not have as much of. The idea that because your main is on Hordes, you've got to have another Horde character to get the benefits and things like that. And I think with this new tab system and things like that, they're going to try and, hopefully, this is just my speculation here, I think slowly they're going to try and break down the barriers, not only in terms of story as they have been doing, but in terms of gameplay between the Horde and the Alliance, so that there could be more fluidity. Because if you think about it, the game is, for an MMO, it's actually quite segmented. If you think about everyone is split up amongst 4 sets of servers across the world, which are then broken down into their own servers, which are then broken down into their own factions. Your player base, as it were, is actually incredibly small, except for these cross-realm zones and now, thankfully, cross-realm raiding.
Yeah.
So I'd like to think that if people decided, actually, I've got some friends over on the Alliance side, and I'd like to go play with them, you don't have to literally move every single character to get the full benefits.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's just to do with the auction house. My link to that is that obviously this is the first stage in that, perhaps.
I completely agree, and even from a lore standpoint, people were saying, "Well, this doesn't make sense," but it actually does, because when you think about like goblins, they're running the Horde auction house, and they'll take money or income or goods. They don't care where it's coming from. They'll sell it. They'll sell it to whoever. But it also makes sense just for the time period that we're at now. The Horde and Alliance are unified to fight one single opposing faction, so it makes sense that we can trade with each other too. Besides the fact that we're fighting, besides the fact that we're fighting over a small little piece of land aside from Draenor, but
yeah, exactly. Where we decided to plonk our capital cities.
Yeah.
But what do you make of it? Do you think this? There's two sides to it, which I'd be interested to find out. What do you think? How do you think it affects gameplay, both from a player base and also the economics of WoW? And I know it sounds like a very big word to use, but there is effectively an economics.
There is a very, very good economy going through WoW right now. I mean, you could probably have an economics professor explain it to you directly how it works, but I think it's really good, especially for servers that are really like one faction heavy, and there's still a player base on the other faction, but their auction house is very poor because there's only a certain amount of people on that faction, whereas it's really heavy on the other side. So doing this will, those servers specifically, like I can think of like Kill Jaden or Thrall, or I'm thinking US servers here, but I know ones that are very one-sided, but heavy population. So this will help out, even that out for the players on the opposing faction. Even out prices, because prices skyrocket on those like small alliance servers.
Do you think though? I'm sort of reading up an article from Fat Loot's Gold blog, and that Fat is spelled it's PHATLEWTS Gold.net. Check it out, because he's written about this, because he, in his own words, he has about 9 characters, 8 on max professions on the Horde side and 1 on the Alliance side. And the reason he's obviously so interested and thankful for this change is because he can now consolidate all his gold making operations, as he calls them, without any penalty. But he poses a really interesting question, and he says, will we be able to trade and chat cross faction?
Now that's interesting. I mean,
soon we're just going to be letting those Alliance into our own city. Where's the line?
That would be interesting. I mean, soon enough, could we possibly see, like, being able to visit each other's capital cities? I mean, I love Stormwind, and I'm a Horde player, but I love Stormwind City. Like, I sometimes, since my server is one of those Horde heavy, I can go sit in Stormwind without really any penalty. So that would be interesting, I mean, chatting, cross play, because I know lore wise we all actually speak the same language, but when you try and type to another faction, it comes out as gibberish on their side.
Well, for some reason always demonic if you're a warlock. I don't know why that is. Everyone speaks demonic. I think that's a bug there.
No, it's intentional.
It does pose a real question about the integration of the player base over integration of the player base versus isolation due to the lore.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Alliance and the Horde can never be one entity.
Right.
But you have to accept that your players want to play together.
Yeah, and
I mean, this is a step away from that idea of cross-faction raiding. Do you remember that was an idea a couple of expansions ago when you had 10 Horde, 10 Alliance?
Yeah, I think Siege of Orgrimmar was the only situation where I can see that would actually work. But when you think about it from a lore perspective, they could tie it in really well right now if they wanted to do it. Because we're not at war anymore. The war was Pandaria between Horde and Alliance. We're good now, especially if you've read the books, the most recent book, that we're all on the same side to find Garrosh. So it would make perfect sense if they start integrating these more social features where we can talk to the other faction and play with the other faction. But there's also got to be limits because there is that old lore, Horde versus Alliance. That's the story of Warcraft, essentially. So yeah, it's just a tough line, and don't know where Blizzard would decide to draw it.
Do you think? I guess it's hard to say. Obviously, we're talking about isolating that sort of chat to. Obviously, this is. I don't know. I don't even know what I was going to say. Really, I was going to say to. No, I've really got a point. I was going to ask. I'll say it anyways. I was going to ask, how far do you think this could go? This level of feature integration. We're integrating the auction houses. Do you think? I mean, what features? I guess I should ask it. What features do you think that are isolated at the moment that should be integrated when Warlords comes out?
I think. I don't think they're ever gonna do like like I was saying, visiting factions capitals. I don't think that'll ever happen. But I think if they were to integrate like a party system, like you can invite other faction members to be in your party, and then that opens up being able to chat with them, trade with them, etc. I think that would be a good way to go with it. Then it's not total isolation, but it still kind of keeps to the lore that your two factions are against each other. But hey, we know each other, so we're in a party together. We're grouping up, so we can talk to each other and trade with each other. So that, so I could see it going that way maybe. But again, I mean, neither of us work at Blizzard, so we have no idea where they're actually going. But I do agree that this could be a first step into further iterations on conjoined factions.
One thing a friend of mine discussed about a week or two ago was the idea that instead of, because for lore reasons, like you say, only recently could you really have 10 Horde and 10 Alliance players getting together. But one of the ideas my friend suggested was that if you could invite people on your friends list, in that way it promotes the idea of building up friendship bases. If you could invite someone on your friends list who was from the other faction, or even on another realm, now it's sort of cross realm, to your group, but as a result they got transformed into a randomly generated faction member. So in a sense you could temporarily play with that person, and then when they left, they went back to whatever they were. So that way you kind of recycled all the players that hadn't used all their flex caps or their LFR caps by just sort of integrating those bases together. Yeah, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense, and that would be great. I mean, I've got several tunes over on the Alliance that, you know, they're not in a guild or anything, so I could use them to do stuff, but I never have a group because all my friends are on the Horde. So that kind of situation makes a lot of sense.
And it gives you a taster. You might go there, you know, play with the Horde, and just go, actually, these guys are hardcore. I can see where all the pros are hanging out.
Yeah.
And
make that big decision, you know, to pay $55.
Exactly, because you want it. You got to try it. You know, it's not all. You can't always tell from a level 1 walking in and saying like, general, hey, I'm a new character. What's everyone like over here? And then seeing the abuse just build up very slowly. But
yeah, I totally agree.
It's certainly worth seeing how far they could take this. I can't think of anything particular. That's why I stuttered on the question.
Yeah,
but it's interesting to see. But anyways, we haven't talked about the guild yet.
Right. They also mentioned that the whole leveling of guilds is gone. Blizzard had said how they liked how it was introduced in Cataclysm, but it created a problem for people trying to make new guilds now, where nobody wants to join a guild that isn't level 25. But we're keeping all the perks. Actually, not all the perks. That's a lie. Some of the perks are being removed, like the cash flow. And I know that's kind of controversial there. But I know one of the big ones, like Mass Res, is staying. Yay. I wish they would bring back have group real travel for us lazy people. But, but I don't know. It's
that would be cool. like a guild summon.
Yeah. What do you think though about them taking out the leveling system there?
I agree with what people are saying. I remember when I got invited when I created what is now my 90 pally, and I was sort of around the 20s in level, and you get the invites constantly, and you actually think, oh right, okay, I'll join this one, and you see it's like level 2 or level 3. You think, oh god, I've got a full Hearthstone timer and
Yeah.
everything, and it's just
But I don't have fast track. I need fast track. I need a level like 2%
well,
faster. So I can't join your guild. Sorry.
I can't ever number crunch that way. I never like chase the 2%, as it were, unless it's like for raiding or something like that. But it's it's strange really, because I want to see how more interestingly, it's not so much the sort of spell perks, as it were, as the item perks I'm interested in, because you unlocked, as obviously the levels build up with the guild, you unlocked all the different items which were accessible, including the heirlooms and the page and the mounts and things like that. So I'd be interested in which ones they're keeping out of those. Obviously, the heirlooms are getting dealt with in their own little way eventually, but if it means now that you join a guild and you have access to all these mounts, it poses some questions.
Well,
I don't know.
I believe like most of the mounts and stuff, they weren't level based; they were guild achievement based, and they're keeping.
Oh, sorry, they were, yes.
And they're keeping the guild achievements because that's a great idea. It's a good way to track progression of what your guild can do. So, if they keep those mounts and stuff strictly to guild achievements, then it still makes sense because it's a reward for what your guild has done.
That's true. Yeah, I remember, because it was for getting reputations and certain
and then again, I haven't seen whether or not the guild reputation is still going to be there. I don't see that it's been removed, and so getting exalted with your guild is still a thing, which is the other way to get those heirlooms, rewards, stuff like that.
I think though it shows that we're also I think this will be the expansion where the sort of the numbers competition is getting addressed full-heartedly. Not only are we getting item squishes because the numbers are getting ridiculous, numbers which are heavily scrutinised in almost every field of play where they can be measured. But I think now Blizzard is looking at things like, in this case, the 25 levels you can get in a guild, and going, well, is this something that helps the game, or is it something that holds it back? And obviously, as people have said, it tends to perhaps be something that holds new guilds back and only promotes the old established ones. So in which case, Blizzard's just gone, well, why have that signifier there? Just get rid of it. And in that sense, it's definitely needs to happen.
Yeah, this is just part of like the big cleanup. Is kind of what this expansion is. It's the big cleanup to the 10-year-old game, modernizing it and everything. And that's great. I think it is great that they're doing this for the guild system, as well as so many different things that they're changing. And this just brings to another topic, the fact of so many small things that are being changed that people haven't even realized that are being changed within the game, because it's not really announced. It's not like a big feature of Draenor, but more like system changes, like the whole filing system of the game. Have you read into that at all?
I heard about it, but I didn't understand it.
It basically how the game stores itself within its file systems is being totally changed, because again, it's based off of a 10-year-old system of how, and now games can be compacted and zipped up much neater, and so they're changing that throughout the game. And they've said people who've played the beta have noticed it, and the developers themselves have said that it just makes the game feel smoother. It's hard to explain until you've actually played it, but you'll just notice the game just feels better, feels more relevant, more modern. And
I think, well, that obviously I think it goes without saying that a lot of the player base that doesn't understand changes like that. But like you say, they're so crucially important, and that's the thing. I'm really glad with how Blizzard have been sort of carrying out this transition. Is regardless of whether the change is something more cosmetic, which obviously everyone can appreciate, all the way down to the design, the whole thing is getting overhauled, as you say. And the fact that they're willing to explain why it needs to be overhauled. I mean, they could have just done it and no one would have understood a thing. But people have to agree, despite all the sort of criticism for some changes they're getting, you cannot fault Blizzard's transparency on every sort of issue they're revamping.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why WoW is still #1 in the MMO scene right now. And that's because Blizzard makes these adaptations to what the game needs. And you know, sure, there's been stuff to complain about. You know, there always is. You'll always have something to complain about, but you keep playing it because Blizzard keeps making these changes to keep the game relevant for the last 10 years. Whereas some
I might be
games...
able to see settings higher than low on my laptop.
Actually, yeah, that is definitely a thing. Better optimization is one of the things they're doing.
But then that's tied to the massive graphical overhaul. Sometimes I think Blizzard's just tried too much. But I'll stay away from a rant. But I think it's only after release. And again, I realise me saying this, I'm thinking, oh, this seems like a very cliche sort of thing to say. But I think it's only after the release people are going to stand back and realise, wow, look what's been done. Because it's massive amounts of work, absolutely massive. And, you know, putting the content aside, the overhaul that they've planned at the moment, let alone the stuff we don't know about, is incredible. So it's
there is so much I bet we don't know about yet. Still, just so much.
That's it. That's again until release day, and that's the thing. I think a lot of people are saying across the whole WoW community is we'll know on release day.
Yeah,
that's all you can say. That's all you can say. We'll know, on release day. That is when you'll know what the game is and what it has in it. Because up until that day, they could do anything.
That leads me to another point I wanted to talk about. So, you know, and this happens with every expansion. We only know what's coming really in the first patch, but do we have any speculation of where the expansion's going to go? You know, we all knew where Mists of Pandaria was going to go because at the BlizzCon they announced, hey, Garrosh Hellscream is the final boss. And at last BlizzCon, they said Garrosh Hellscream is not the final boss of Warlords.
Well, that's it. It's I mean, just very quickly, without going into too much detail, where would you want to see the expansion going, or I guess where do you think it will go?
Well, I know at some point there's an island south of Draenor that has something to do with the ogres. That is the creature I was trying to think of earlier in the show, and I couldn't think of what they were called. Ogres. There's an island.
Oh. Gotcha. Yeah.
There's an island south of there which we had no detail on at BlizzCon, and they briefly mentioned that this will come in a later patch to the expansion. So I know maybe a raid or something to do with trolls or ogres on that island.
Zandalaria back or
something. Oh god, no. the Zandalari. No, the Zandalari are going to invade Ulduar, and it will become Zulduar. So.
Oh god.
No.
I mean, I think I said in the last show where I thought it was going, but to sort of swap that point over, what part do you think the Burning Legion's going to play? Because I saw again I couldn't remember where, it was a video on YouTube earlier today. Someone was saying, well, if we're in an alternate reality, does that mean we're fighting a different Burning Legion? And the response was apparently the Burning Legion is something that transcends all realities.
Right.
So really they're everywhere. So I sat there and thought, well, if they're everywhere, they're going to surely come over here at some point and just trash the place.
Well, since we're working with Gul'dan this time, I think we're right off the bat not going to have the whole him be the cause of the demons in the Burning Legion. So we may not see them at all this expansion, and I could totally see that, or I could see them being a prelude to 7.0, the new expansion. And I could see that being a total Burning Legion style expansion, but as for them being in Draenor, I don't know. They could be on in a later patch, but I'm really not sure.
I'd say.
You know, I'd be interested. I wouldn't be surprised if we wipe out the Iron Horde in the first patch. You know, the first raid patch, because you know, it seems like in the first couple dungeons, you know, we're getting rid of some of those bosses from the main title screen, and then there's Heimal, and there's the other raid. So
that's
I mean,
a fair point. That's a fair point. You know, we have to wonder to what extent how much the game Warlord's actually going to be in it.
Yeah, I mean, we could have a complete transitional shift in the tone. You know, kind of like Mists of Pandaria, how the first two really were lore involved with Pandaria, and then it switched around to being against Garrosh. You know, because we defeated the Shah, we defeated Lei Shen, and then it, you know, took a different course in how the story was going. I could kind of see that happening for Warlords of Draenor as well.
That is a good point to make.
If we have to fight Garrosh, I'll scream it again though. Just.
I wouldn't even. I can't even imagine what part. I've forgotten his name. Who did you just say?
Garrosh?
Garrosh. Sorry, I was thinking Garash, and I was like, it's not Garash. Garrosh. Sorry, we're having one of those days. I can't remember anything.
Yeah.
But there's some interesting parts in the sort of progression through like Tanan Jungle. I think they've shown some parts where you see Garash with his dad in some of the more lore-based story quests, and I genuinely think if he is an encounter, he'll be more of a
heroic
mechanic
scenario.
or heroic scenario. Maybe heroic scenario. Maybe they'll really sort of give him the ultimate disgrace, put him in a scenario. But if anything, I think at most just make him a mechanic, like you're fighting Gramash, and
maybe
then
like a little cutscene. I can totally see Grom actually killing Garrosh. You did not live up to my expectations.
That's it. That'd be perfect. Perfect.
That would be interesting. So moving on, we went on another rant there. This week, I can't tell if this is real or fake, but there's an announcement of the Molten Corgi. Get it? Molten Corgi. Trying to pull up the picture here.
I'm glad that corgis are finally making it into WoW.
Yeah.
Why is everything molten though? Why does everything have to be molten?
I think it's just for the molten core, molten corgi. You can see it right here. It's adorable for a pet, but I just thought that was a hilarious name. The molten.
It is good. I think a lot of people missed that. I think definitely. I
know one of my WoW friends from work. I had to say it several times before he got the. Oh, molten core! I get it.
You're saying really say like. Molten core gi.
Yeah. So that's a small bit of news, but I think that's adorable. Cool little thing.
No, it is cute.
But is it a joke or is it real? That's what I don't even know.
Well, apparently players have been asking for one for years. So specifically a corgi, and I don't know why. I don't think the Queen is the only reason corgis are famous. But
it is. She made them famous.
Right? Probably. But there you go. Something else just to throw in. Spend $20.
Yeah. All right, moving on.
Where's all my money, Blizzard?
I know you wanted to talk about some Hearthstone controversy. This isn't directly related to WoW, but in a way it is.
It's very briefly because there's been it's been covered probably to a large extent already on YouTube. So contrary, I guess, to everything else I've said, I won't be spending too long on this. But I really won't. But you've probably, if people have listened to videos, there's a lot on people like Panzer and her channel. She addressed it really because I guess she's certainly a voice in this.
Yeah.
It's to do with a Hearthstone tournament, and it was the International Esports Federation who decided they wanted gaming to be recognised as a true sport. So with that in mind, they decided to follow the professional model of gender segregating sports. So obviously you have male competitors in their own league and female competitors. And with fewer women competitors than men, this caused a lot of tournaments with a large section of men but very few for women. And in which case, in the case of Hearthstone tournaments, Dota 2 and Ultra Street Fighter 4, you had men only. Events going on, so this caused a lot of controversy because a lot of it's been sold as women being banned from gaming. They're not so much banned as they're thrown into a pool that can't really survive on its own. So that has since been reversed, and the International Esports Federation has decided that they're going to reverse everything, and they released a statement saying one of our goals with esports is to ensure that there's a vibrant and also inclusive community around our games. We do not allow the use of our games in tournaments that do not support this, and we are working with our partners to ensure they share the same goal. So there you go. And now the 6th Esports World Championship back in 2014, men and women will be able to compete together in StarCraft 2 and Hearthstone, while there's also a women's only StarCraft 2 tournament, interestingly. So the reason this links to WoW was generally in the sense of esports in general, and perhaps how things like you talked about the arena matches earlier, and perhaps how they might be addressed in the future. Do you think it's right that well, firstly, what do you think about the balance between gender in sort of WoW? And yeah, go on, we'll start with that.
Well, I think their decision to reverse it was the completely right decision. First off, by saying that, because it makes sense in sports. First of all, like whether it's wrestling or football or basketball, whatever. If it's men versus women, there's just going to be that athleticism of men and women. They're so big and different sizes. You know, I'm not. You know, there's a physicality there that's completely different, so it makes sense for the sports to be different.
Exactly.
But with gaming, it's completely different. There's, you know, if you're segregating them, and you're almost saying that women would be slower, less responsive, or don't have the brain capacity, because that's what competitive gaming is.
I think it's the other way around.
Right, exactly.
We're probably slower.
But that's kind of what that's saying, because there's no physicality involved with gaming, unless we're talking about Wii games. But so without the physicality, what are you saying there when you're trying to segregate the two? So I think that was a big decision there that they made, and it's a good thing that got reversed, in my opinion. It makes complete sense for men and women to be competing equally, because there's really no difference there.
Well, I obviously I think you've said it all, so I won't waste time repeating it. That's spot on. But do you think it's interesting from a WoW perspective, I guess, to talk about gender in gaming? And I realise it's probably unusual for guys to discuss gender in gaming, because we generally you don't get many guys just talking about it, because it doesn't really pop on our radar so much.
Yeah,
but
it's not usually an issue brought up by
exactly us. That's what I mean. So you never find a game where people are going, God, there's no guys in this. You know?
Yeah, right.
The point I'm trying to make,
except for a Hello Kitty Island adventure.
Exactly. Yeah, us guys were really niffed about that. But that's my point. Is guys very rarely have a need to voice their opinion, and women very rightly do in this case, and in many other cases. But the point I want to make is, do you think it's unusual? We talk about this physicality around the WoW gaming experience, but in terms of the actual in the character game itself, one of war and bloodshed and things like that, we're going into a new expansion, and there are if you think of all the protagonists, both sides, on the Iron Horde and the sort of the alliance, as it were, between the Horde and the alliance,
it's very male. Lots of testosterone in this expansion.
It's a lot.
And
all the warlords are male, if I'm right.
Right.
And then you've got Khadgar Valen. I don't know where Jaina is. Jaina used to be awesome. The girls' team, but
she's taking a break after the book. She kind of went through she almost died in the book, so
yeah,
she's kind of taking a breather here. But this is an issue. This also is an issue that's been surrounding gaming entirely, not just WoW. The lack of female protagonists in video games. But
someone actually, sorry, go on. I won't interrupt.
I was just gonna say, lore-wise, for Warcraft's story, it just kind of makes sense because of how brutal the war is, and it's mythical, and so for this particular storyline, it makes sense. And we do have the strong female characters like Jaina and Tyrande Whisperwind and Sylvanas. They're all still very there. But this is a very brutal world, very masculine world. It just kind of makes sense in that way. But gaming entirely, we rarely see a game like Tomb Raider or Mirror's Edge with a female protagonist. So that it's an issue that's going around gaming, but I don't think it's as big of one in Warcraft. Especially since the game is based around your own character mainly. Like, you're supposed to be the star of the game, and you can be whichever gender you want. So
that's it. I remember it probably wasn't a massive thing, to be honest. Someone did make a comment about how at the end of Siege of Orgrimmar, how, if I'm right, unless they got it totally wrong, none of the sort of female faction leaders turned up apart from Jaina. So you didn't have Sylvanas turn up, right? Or was she in the movie? Did she turn up?
Oh, I don't remember. I skip
I
it
don't
every
remember.
time.
Sorry, if I'm wrong, I forgive me. But in the sense, apart from Jaina, who obviously had a huge narrative function, they didn't. Tyrande wasn't in the
Right,
final
she was.
sort of scene,
She
or
was outside, with all of her
yeah,
night elves blocking off the
beating
earth.
backsides.
Yeah.
So whoever says women can't be physical in gaming, just
Tyrande was she was very big in the book. She was Garrosh's accusing lawyer, basically, speaking for all the world races against Garrosh. So she had quite a big role in the book. And it seems like a lot of the characters. I mean, the narrative in Warcraft in the game can be very small anyway when you think about it. So they have these small little cutscenes to convey what they want to, but you see a lot more out of the characters in the books anyway, which, there's an entire book about Jaina. There's an entire book about Malfurion and Tyrande, so...
Exactly. If I'm right, War Crimes has a huge section on Sylvanas and
Sylvanas
sister.
And... what is her sister's name?
I had it a second ago. This isn't Law Day. It won't be Law Day.
Verisa, that's her name.
Verisa, that's it. I knew she was the Ranger General, but I'm thinking back to it, and actually I don't know what that point I was referring to earlier was, because I'm starting to remember there are actually more female characters. You have G, don't you, from the Pandaren?
Yep.
G and she plays a...
What's his name? What's his name's niece? The little young cub.
Oh yeah,
she's in Heroes of the Storm now as well.
Oh, is she
Lily?
really?
Lily.
Oh, Lily,
yep.
She's there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, see, that's the thing. Oh yeah, Cho.
We are so good at names today.
We're not good with names. This is not the Law Day. It's not Lord. But I think though that's an interesting point. Is that there are actually quite a few strong female protagonists that we saw in Mr. Pandaria, and although there are initial sort of female characters at the beginning. I know at the Dark Portal in the beta, there are a couple sort of sitting around with some of the other protagonists, and it will be interesting to see. I guess whether we have another Jaina situation where a woman just loses it and just tries to burn everyone to the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, I really don't think the whole lack of females is actually a problem in Warcraft. Like as I said, it is in other games, but when you like we have just done now, looking through Pandaria, like oh yeah, there's this, so it's not really a problem that we see in Warcraft, I think.
No, there's my little gender discussion done.
Yep. So moving on from that, nights are finally getting darker, hopefully, in Warcraft.
Hopefully.
This is something I'd love to see because aside from the sky being a different color, you can't really tell a difference right now in Warcraft between night and day.
No, and to anyone who doesn't quite understand what we're talking about, the old sort of vanilla night time was very dark and almost creepy to an extent.
Yeah.
Where it really did get dark. But if you look around today, there's not really a difference. You see the nighttime sky and everything, but there's not so much of a nighttime shading on everything.
Yeah, and here
so
you can see this right now. Nights right now, it's just the sky's a different color, whereas before it was dark and there were lights on in the windows. Where did it go?
It used to be the way where actually it kind of not so much in summertime but wintertime definitely. It was the case where when I was playing vanilla, it was like it's probably time to go to bed. It's been dark for quite a while.
Yeah.
But now you just keep playing and playing and playing, and you never realise.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as well, because they're tying in certain nighttime and day features into talents, it with the druids, if I'm right.
I've heard that as well, which I don't know.
That would be. I think that's part of it. Maybe
that would be.
They need to make night feel like night.
Yeah. But yeah, that would be good. I would like to see it, like especially in places like Tanan Jungle or places where there's less natural light. It should be dark, like like World PvP, for instance, can almost be like frightening because you can sneak up on someone in the dark. I'd like it to be that dark personally, but
that would be cool if there was. And also in terms of the mechanics, if it played around like nighttime gave you improved stealth bonuses or something like that, or.
And there should maybe you get lanterns, and so you can reveal people sneaking up on you, or just better view of the surrounding area.
That would be really cool. I'd like that.
Yeah. It,
Just to feel like you're actually engaging with the world a little bit more.
mhm, absolutely. So I hope that's true. Um, so another thing here we can see the mount tab has been updated along with many other features coming to Warlords, but the mount tab. This has been kind of a new thing discovered within the beta, but they're adding new descriptions to pretty much all the mounts, which is kind of interesting. Um, that's not that big of a change, but at the same time, it kind of makes it entertaining, especially the one for the chicken, the magic
Yeah,
rooster.
the magic rooster,
Yeah,
the mythical magic rooster, which isn't a mount. No one knows whether this is going to be a real thing or not, or is it a real thing? I don't know.
it is. It is a real mount.
Oh, it is.
Yes. You
Oh, sorry. I heard
you can
a
get it
rumor that
right now.
was-
I think it was a TGC drop from the trading card.
Oh. Fair enough. Fair enough. You learn something new every day, don't you?
Yes.
Magic in the hands of a genius can do wonderful, miraculous things. Magic in the hands of an idiot can make a giant rooster. Says the description.
Yeah. But that just brings to mind a lot of the changes, like the bags, for instance, how they're changing the whole bag interface. So you can have this bag be for a set of gear and this bag be for that. Which would be interesting. I might go back to using the Blizzard default bags as opposed to an add-on. I currently use, a bag add-on, so it organizes stuff for me. But
No, that's
looks like you don't have
definitely it.
And that seems like what they're doing just in multitudes here with the interface, is eliminating the need for add-ons by putting in popular features to the game. Like, the raid finder tool is another example of that.
No, that's it. It's all got in a sense. Tabs are going to be the future of this game, I think, to an extent, more so than anything else, because the way players are using those interfaces, the way that obviously as we start to get more, hopefully, as we were discussing earlier, more cross faction, but certainly more cross realm features. Not only for your own account but with other accounts, it's going to be nice to just take that out of the old style vanilla inventory, which in the end was designed. It's still following the design it was designed for in vanilla, which is to hold items that you're going to be using constantly. But the problem is, WoW is just full of stuff you just do not use, particularly those vanity items from Mr. Pandaria. And this is what the game is going to rely on in terms of an infrastructure going ahead, is all these items that you don't use regularly. Mounts included, because you don't often use them, particularly flying mounts, because let's be honest, we're never going to use them. But it's gonna be the way we handle them, and they can't be in, inventory has to be for stuff you're using. I think even quest items.
Yep, quest items get their own little thing. They're not going to be in your bags, which is nice. And yeah, I love the whole, you get a toy box. I think that's pretty cool.
Yes, that's it.
And your heirlooms, they'll be very accessible on one tab, so you won't have to, which tune is my agility weapon on? I have to go search through all my tunes and find it. No, they'll all be nicely stored.
Oh no, I swapped him to hordes.
It's either I pay money to switch it over or farm out 2,500 justice points. Which one?
That's it.
But
what would that leave in the inventory very quickly? So it's going to be sort of regents and items,
stuff for your professions, your gear, all your gear will be in there.
Yeah, that's true.
So there's hoarders like me who have multiple transmog sets. I have my void storage filled up, pretty much for my DK.
I think that should be on an episode of Hoarders. They just go into WoW accounts and
we'll do an edition of this show, Hoarders, and we'll go through my bags.
Yeah, I really am scared to look. It's amazing though what you find in your bank, particularly from characters that you haven't played in quite a while.
Yeah, I've got.
You go, God, was that actually an item? Or
like I've had those little things that turn your mount into reindeer from the Christmas thing. I've had a stack of that for like the past 5 years, and it just keeps piling up because I never use it. It just sits in my bag.
You think developers are going to have to sit there and go, God, people might actually still have this item.
Right. So they've also talked about this week that people have been asking on the forums, are you going to do any changes to the faces? And Blizzard definitely responded with a yes. They are not done yet. There's a lot of more fine tuning to do with the faces. They're not quite done capturing the essence of the old characters, and they've said this from the beginning. That's what they want to do the most, is make sure that the essence of your character is still visible within their face. And so far I've seen from the faces, they still kind of look a bit cartoony, especially in some of the expressions. They just look a bit silly, but they're still working on that, so that's a good thing.
There was a tweet from No More On Forever, who tweeted Tyson Murphy, who No More On Forever was saying, "Newsflash: people still hate the." She's done a symbol, but the sort of, like you say, the cartoony face you gave us. What's the ETA on a fix? 10 years. And Tyson Murphy did say, "We want to revisit her face pose ASAP. Time is limited, but we really want to address this." But again, going back to the detail, it's that balance between, you know, what would be the ideal and what can be done. There's still so much being done on this game. You have to ask, is this really the thing? Like, I'm not saying there isn't a point here and No More On Forever is going on about nothing, but we have to remember this stuff can be fixed later, as it were. The stuff they're really planning on is making sure this game comes out before December 20th. Yeah. And you know, considering all the content and the raids and everything, you know, they'll try and fix it, but you know, they have once the game's out, they can do it. But priorities.
Yeah, definitely. That leads me to the point of, where are the Blood Elves and the Trolls? Come on, where are they?
They just don't exist.
They're not getting revamped at all.
They just will not exist at all. They were killed off. Vol'jin did a terrible job setting up the unions for the Hordes, so they kicked him out. And
all the trolls have been killed.
Yeah, all the trolls were killed, and then Blood Elves just went back to the Sunwell, and that was that.
They all just jumped in. See where this takes us.
We're on an adventure.
And that'll be a whole nother expansion for people who play Blood Elves. So.
Exactly. That's Blood Elves get their own expansion called Swimming in the Sunwell. It's actually a simulator game.
I like this. Blizzard, make it so.
No, this whole show's going off tangents.
Yes. Moving on. It looks like in the latest beta build for Draenor, there's stuff leading to a new legendary quest about Gorefiend.
Yes. It's we talked quite a lot, obviously, about legendaries, so we won't repeat anything. But there is in the beta an item, a legendary item called Corrupted Blood of Terran Gore, which is the original Orcish name for Terran Gorefiend, who you may remember is the first ever Death Knight, and you would have found him in the Black Temple. So you probably, if you can remember him, then he's the guy who will drop, I don't know necessarily, but it's his Corrupted Blood. It's a legendary item. There is no other news on this. It's just been data mined, and they found that item. However, I think if there are legendary items or components, I should say, then inevitably that means there must be a legendary result, as it were.
Yeah, safe to say there's going to be a legendary item, and if it is Corrupted Blood of Terrangor, if that is leading towards Gorefiend, I really hope it's a Death Knight legendary.
Well, the rumor on Joystick on WoW Insider is that it's going to be caster centric, apparently given Gorefiend's history. But I think you're right there. You know, why not give it to the Death Knights?
Yes. Let's give us a ranged spec. You know, give us a 4th spec. It's ranged, and there we'll have that.
Yep, that's fair, because Death Knights need another spec right now.
Yeah.
Well, you could have that Lich spec that everyone wanted to.
Yes. That just brings up another interesting topic. Maybe for future expansions, people have talked about the idea of adding a 4th, instead of, a new class, again, a 4th spec for each class, except for Druids, because they already have 4.
How about have it as a spec which is unlocked when you put on your new legendary cape?
You get your new spec with your legendary.
That sounds awful.
And everyone's the same. It's all the same spec.
It's the same ability. It's called Slap. And
That's the fight. You just
You-
spam your slap key.
Yes, it's like it's like the how the healing stream totems bugged out and drain the Draenor base, so they just fire a million every second. Just happy slap the enemy, but still it's interesting enough because there's no clue as to whether it's a legendary quest or a legendary drop or an item to be crafted, sorry, or anything like that, or quest chain, whatever. But it's interesting as a lore component because naturally all these items had to be tied into the lore, and if you're taking something from a Death Knight, as you say, it builds up a number of possible scenarios. So yeah, at the moment, possible weapon, I think we could say.
And we really have no way of knowing. I mean, like we discussed last week, we still can't even tell what type of progression we're going to have here. Is this going to be like a weapon, like only this type of class can use it, or is it going to be kind of, another people's legendary? We still can't really tell from what we've seen so far, but it's a legendary item, so confirmation, big surprise, there's going to be a legendary in Draenor of some kind.
That's all we know.
So one last little point here. Blizzard released a lovely Draenor preview, or a Frostfire Ridge preview, excuse me. And I thought the timing of this was rather weird because Frostfire Ridge was the first zone to be revealed in the alpha many weeks ago now. A lot of people have been able to see it. So it's kind of strange that it's coming out after the preview for like Tanan Jungle and Shadow Moon Valley, but it's a nice little preview. You get to see some nice screenshots here if you haven't seen what this. Look at this. This could have been our capital city, ladies and gentlemen. This could have been our capital city.
We could have had that. But it's interesting. I haven't seen it yet, to put it bluntly. I just haven't seen any of this. I haven't. When I've been watching streams, no one's really paid much attention to their maps. They seem to see it looking. But it's, again, you've got more of these sort of giant, massive skeletons all over the place. And what is Frostfire supposed to be what in the original Outlands?
Yeah.
Is it Bladespire?
No, it's actually not. If you were to have the maps overlaid with each other, it's not there really.
Oh right.
So it may be like the start of Bladespire, but there's already kind of the zone for that as well. So this is kind of like a chunk of Draenor that's actually gone, when it's Outland. But yeah, it's really hostile. I mean, it kind of fits the Horde, but as a Horde player, I am jealous of Shadow Moon Valley, and I've heard this from many people who have played the beta, that there's really nothing wrong with Frostfire Ridge, but Shadow Moon Valley really kind of takes the cake, apparently.
Yeah, no, I in a way, I'm glad we've got it this way round. I don't know how it would have played out, but I think it's quite having. I think even if Horde players perhaps feel quite a bit of a connection, as it were, to Karabor and sort of what happens in Shadow Moon and things like that, and obviously the Black Temple, and seeing there's a real interest from both sides of the player base on how that area pans out. Whereas, like you say, and as I've just learned, if Frostfire never really was there, there's not really a lore to have been already kind of investing and going, was this what it was like? So, I can see why you're jealous. But saying that, it might not be there for very long. Maybe that's patch 6.1 it just drops off.
I highly doubt it, but that would be interesting.
And that's why Blizzard goes, that's why we put the capital cities on Ashra.
The only benefit I can see to this, really, I mean, not the only benefit, but one thing I like about it is the Horde garrison in Frostfire is really big.
Yeah,
and you look
that's
at
huge.
The Alliance one is actually quite compact compared to the Horde garrison, so yes, Loktar, our garrison is huge.
It's actually bigger. It's actually, I think, to an extent, it's bigger on the map than anything else. But no, that's just impressive. I really am impressed as well with the whole this sort of
Yeah.
contrast, molten.
I guess
and,
I'm more
like-
jealous just of the looks, I guess, of Shadow Moon. Shadow Moon is a very gorgeous zone, and it's got like the NPC there. They're pretty cool. You know, it's got a lot of cool little unique creatures to it. Whereas Frostfire is very hostile and very lava and snow. But that also keeps with the themes of the Horde. So maybe I should just play Alliance.
Yeah, no, I think we
Heresy.
should as well. We'll all be the same faction sooner or later.
So one little closing note here for the show. It is July 5th here, but Blizzard, for my fellow American watchers, Blizzard did release this little video, and I'll play this here on the show. It was a little thing to what happened after the intro cutscene to Mists of Pandaria.
So... it was a bear? In a hat!
In a hat, indeed. In a hat.
Damn you!
Thought that was
I don't know why I
pretty
said damn you. It's nice though. It's nice that they're willing to do that. Admittedly, Warlords would have been released if they hadn't done that. But that's how much develop. That's when they say we're working on other projects. It's that video. That took all the development time.
Yep. That just makes me excited to see the Warlords intro scene, because the animators that do those are always so good. Even looking back to how good the first one for the original World of Warcraft, that one was even so good, and so definitely excited to see what they do for Warlords' opening soon there.
It's how much comedy they put in. Because Pandaria was the first one where they had the comedy moments, or the others were too.
No.
Like you couldn't have Deathwing and like some guy running away and then slipping on a banana peel or something like that. It would have just destroyed
Or
all the
Deathwing trip
gravity.
over something on his way out. Ah!
Yeah, exactly.
My agony.
Just falls into the lake. Like wop wop wop.
And that's what causes the big tidal wave. Is him.
That's the cataclysm. It's just Deathwing slipping on a banana peel.
No, I think they'll probably avoid comedy in this one too. Keeping with the whole savage theme of Draenor. So.
Yeah, true.
Well, that's it. In closing, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you for checking us out. Stay tuned every week. We usually do this on Saturdays. But stay tuned. My name is Patrick. Again, you can follow me at Tarly_pause on Twitter. And as for you, Tom,
I'm at TC McIlroy.
yay.
And of course Jake, who unfortunately couldn't make it this week. He is at Zorgeek.
Yes, hopefully Jake will be joining us again next week on the show. Also, you can follow us at Geeks of Azeroth on Twitter, and of course at epicgeeks.co.uk, as well as you can email us at, what is it, it's Geeks of Azeroth EG at gmail.com. Alright, thank you everybody for watching, and have a good week in Warcraft.